settling into post-winter retreat mode, and many of the lay people who helped with the retreat have departed, and others are making plans, I guess. And but for all of us, it's still whether we're kind of in retreat, post-retreat, whether we're monastic, whether we're lay people, we still have to keep practicing. Still have to keep on task. Of course, the option is confusion and suffering. I mean, it's not much of an option. So it's that commitment to creating foundations for our clarity and our well-being, but it's important to keep. I mean, one knows we prioritize that. We have that as a priority, but to keep attention on how to keep it straightforward, keep it simple, to not complicate things, not complicate our life, not complicate our practice. It's there are, of course, a huge range of teachings that the Buddha gave, but recollecting, bringing to mind the simplicity of the teaching and the practice as well. Think of what teaching did the Buddha give that was consistent throughout his whole career? And of course, the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path. That's the most consistent teachings, and and particularly, I think, in terms of the practice, the training, the cultivation, that the Buddha, from his very first teaching, talking about the Eightfold Path as the middle way of practice leading to the ending of suffering, and teaching that, returning to that over and over again throughout his life, throughout his whole teaching career, and right up to the very end of his life. He is on his deathbed, lying down, and the last teaching that he gave to Subhadda, the wanderer, where he had various doubts and questions, and the Buddha sort of reassuring him to not to get caught in all these doubts and questions, but to focus on the path, because he is concerned about all the different teachers, and what's the right way, what's the wrong way, and the Buddha say, don't don't get too caught up in that. As long as one practices according to this Noble Eightfold Path, the world will not be devoid of awakened beings. That is the path of practice leading to to the ending of suffering, to peace, to realization. So that bringing to mind this path of practice, and right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. It's something that in reality we all know, but it's important to keep reviewing it and reflecting on it, and because it is so central, it's easy to look past it. But because it's so central, it's essential to really penetrate it, understand it completely, because it is the way of living, way of training ourselves that will result in our freedom from suffering, freedom from entanglement, to peace and to understanding. So that cultivation of the path is one that is on a certain level it's how do you say, sequential, but that's also, and it does kind of say there is a logical consistency to it in terms of, okay, that's having that right view, right understanding, leading to those right intentions, right volitions, moving into our actions, moving into the training. I mean, there's a logical aspect to that, but it's not exclusively sequential. And in reality, it's intersecting and mutually supporting each other to perform its function of freeing the heart. It's like Ajahn Jeff uses the word, let's say, in term of like the kind of linear approach of it is one way, but then also he said holographic, which is a nice way of putting it, in that it's reflecting each other all the time. The past is always reflecting each other, reflecting on each other, and it's one of the ways that the Buddha himself, and there's Majjhima Nikaya 117, the Great 40, the Buddha talks of how the path is one of actually, I mean, he starts the sutta with I'll teach you right concentration, which is the sort of the last factor of the path. I'll teach you right concentration, but then it says, well, right concentration is our right meditation. It's that concentration that is supported by all the other path factors. So it sort of pulls it all together. But then he also goes through the through the path and sort of saying each path factor is supported by right view, right effort, right mindfulness, each, so that those factors are always supporting and interacting with each of the other path factors as one is cultivating and practicing. So it is this, holographic is a nice way, where it's reflecting each other. It's a whole picture that is not a linear kind of step by step thing that we're trying to get ourselves in lockstep so we can get it right. It's in trying to get a feel for the whole picture, and then you reap the fruits of the practice through that. So it's this sense of how this path is plays itself out in our life, in our interactions with the world, but then also in our training, our reflection, our investigation, our application of mindfulness. It is all applicable, and the more skill we cultivate in developing it, that is what will lead us to the experiencing the fruits of peace and clarity. So that also the sense of internalizing the path. It's like the Longpa Cha one time talking about, we talk about the Eightfold Path, and we think of it as all this list that's from the scriptures, and he says, but it's really about us. He says the Eightfold Path is like 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, 1 tongue, 1 body, with the and it's all kind of integrated in the mind, in the knowing. So it's that there's these. It's not far away from us. It's not something that we pull out of a book. I mean, of course, it is. There is knowledge there, but it has to be brought back to these aspects of our experience, and the Buddha's teaching is always experiential. Certainly, what they say, Four Noble Truths are again not about a list. Suffering, cause of suffering, cessation of suffering, path leading to cessation. I mean, obviously it is a list, but it's about experience, and it's the experience that we learn from, and it's the experience that allows us to understand and penetrate what's actually in accordance with truth, what's in accordance with the experience of liberation, of freedom. It's to this sense of bringing things back to experience, and the whole of the Dhamma is like that. But certainly, in particular, this sense of this Eightfold Path that the Buddha taught is really about this paying attention to how we experience the world with our senses, with our mind, how we interact with the world with our body, speech, and mind, and how those integrate, how those work together. And I also remember Lopa Cha, and I assume it's from, I don't know where he got it from, but anyway, he was saying that in the, like in the story of the Buddha's awakening, the kind of like the events leading up to the Buddha's enlightenment, where he sees the Bodhi tree with the Nelanjara river nearby, and it's so this is a suitable place for striving, and then and he's settling down to practice and really commit to freedom. He's given up on his various ascetic practices and self-torture, and then a villager comes along and offers him 8 bundles of kusa grass, and the Buddha uses these 8 bundles of kusa grass to make a seat that he sits on for underneath the Bodhi tree to sit in meditation. And Lopa Cha saying, yeah, those 8 bundles of kusa grass are a simile or an image of the Buddha was sitting on Eightfold Path, and that was his place of awakening. That was his place of striving to realize liberation. That is the sense of the central function of this Eightfold Path, this training in virtue, in meditation, in discernment, and to keep bringing our practice back to that, so that it gets reinvigorated, it gets renewed. But there is a stability and continuity that's not complicated and speculative. It's grounded in our experience, and so that sense of how that committing to this straightforward practice is it takes us to peace and to liberation. And so I think of the image that the Buddha gives of the practice or this path, as it would be as if one put a log into a river, and the current of the river would take it along, and as long as it didn't get caught up on, say, the left-hand side of the bank of the river or the right-hand side of the bank of the river, or didn't get stuck on some sandbar somewhere, it would finally go out to the ocean. And so similarly, as long as we commit to this noble Eightfold Path, this path of practice that the Buddha laid down, these aspects of Sila, Samadhi, Panya, and don't get caught in the extremes of our wanting or not wanting, our liking, disliking, our various joys and sorrows, and don't get caught on the sandbars of kind of laziness and confusion, that practice will take us out to the experience of liberation and peace and clarity. That is its nature, is being able to follow that stream, that flow of the Dhamma. Similarly, there was I can't remember where, well, it would be probably almost certainly be in the Samyutta concerning stream entry, but it's Sariputta and the Buddha talking and I guess Sariputta asking, what is the stream and what is a stream enterer, and the Buddha saying that the stream is this Noble Eightfold Path. This stream is this path of practice, and a stream enterer is one who fully implements this Eightfold Path. It's just as because it's easy sometimes to think, again, getting lost in the definitions and the speculations of what a stream enter is, what qualities, and what else. But it comes back to this practice and giving oneself to the practice that conforms to this. And something we all know. We all know the Noble Eightfold Path, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. It's something that, but to give ourselves to it, and that sense of the giving ourselves to it is also, I think of when the Buddha speaks of the qualities that characterize the nirodha, the ending of suffering, or that are essential for the ending. Those factors or qualities that in Pali, that chako, padinisago, mutti, analayo. That is kind of the feeling tone of the ending of suffering, or what is the catalyst for that cessation of suffering, cessation of dukkha. But that's also what informs, or should inform, how we implement the path, or how the path is put into practice. There's this sense of chako, of giving, and because like chako is both a sense of giving, generosity, but also a giving up, and in order for the path to bear fruit, we have to give ourselves to it, or in order for the Dhamma to to have that, to be able to express its flavor. Yeah, we have to give ourselves to it. We can't somehow just sort of wait for it to sort of magically transform us. We have to give ourselves to it, but we have to a certain, we have to give up to it. Because if it's sort of, me waiting to get something for myself, that's never going to work. We have to give ourselves the Dhamma, give up to the Dhamma, give up to the practice. It's just the way nature works. For say there's an idiom in certainly in time. So, but it's like the one. Like the Dhamma looking after you. But in order for the Dhamma to look after you, you have to look after the Dhamma. So it's it goes both ways. So similarly, the path, a practice, and we're looking after the Dhamma, but that looking after it is what then gives the fruit. So that sense of chako, giving, being, kind of having a generous, open heart to give oneself to the practice, to the training. Patinisago is relinquishment. Again, a sort of that sense of giving up, relinquishing. Because if it's well, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of it? That kind of what about me? is sort of such a kind of self-protecting, but that self-protecting is there's so much self in it that one crowds out the Dhamma. So that sense of pati, that relinquishment, is an open-hearted giving to the Dhamma. It's a relinquishment. So chago, padinisago, mutti is release. So that release, that letting go, and of course, padinisago is quite explicitly, say, like a relinquishment of self. Mutti is similar. I mean, in order for that release of grasping, of clinging, a release of self-identification, that release is what frees the heart, because that's that mutti or vimutti. It's a freedom. There's a freedom when we're willing to release that self-position, that self-identification. Analayo is like non-attachment. Similarly, non-attachment, non-clinging, not sticking to it. There's a stickiness to the mind with our clinging. It's sort of like Velcro or some materials just pick up everything. I just cleaned something over. I found something and cleaned it up at my kuti, because I've been there for 2 years, and it's been in the cabinet over there. It was one of the things that was left. And I looked at it fairly recently. I hadn't really looked at it. It's covered in cat hair. And I don't, dogs and cats are okay, but they're just, everything gets covered in cat hair, dog hair. Anyway, this was, it's like, it's stuck. And even I washed it with soap. I sprayed it with the hose, and had to come down. That is the opposite of analio. that's sort of that analio is that non-sticking, non-clinging, non-attachment, and so that and that's the kind of heart we want to be cultivating. You don't want to be picking up these impressions and moods and views and opinions from the world around us and carrying it all around and cluttering the mind, cluttering the heart. So that's the flavor of the path. That kind of flavor. And the kind of feeling of the path is really that feeling of release, of relinquishing. And so that the whole path of practice that the Buddha lays out, from right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Again, those are not positions of burden or of entanglement, or that has the flavor of release, the feeling of putting down the burden throughout the whole path as we practice it. So learning how to implement the path, learning how to return to the path, learning how to rely on the path, and it's just so essential to keep reminding. And as I say, particularly we're shifting into the time of kind of post-retreat, duties, responsibilities. There'll probably be some comings and goings, but to have the path front and center, have the path eliciting the feeling, the essence, the purpose of it. So I'll offer that for reflection this evening.